flat ground.
Right? Seriously. I'll show you pictures today, man. Unbelievable.
I've seen this one before.
Thank you.
Yep, I've got mine. Thank you. Yeah, right. Good evening. Welcome to our city council meeting this evening for Wednesday, March 22nd. We are going to get started tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance by Becca. So Becca, just come to the, just come up here. And just, right there, yep.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Becca. We appreciate it. We're going to now go to item 4.2, City Council comments and recognitions. Steve, do you want to do yours first?
Yeah. Wonder if he's here.
He is.
Where?
He's over there.
Oh, there he is. So early last spring, when we were going through some of our budget discussions, we discovered that the city, over a year's time, was spending close to $70,000 a year renting sound equipment for productions, town days, the musicals, those kind of things. And we started realizing that's a lot of money going out the door every year in rental. So I reached out to a resident that I knew is an expert in sound systems and said, what do you think we could get for $70,000 or so in terms of owning our sound system? Would it be enough to replace what we're renting every year? And thankfully, this particular resident is very knowledgeable and helped us design and put together a system that not only functions for our biggest sound needs, which is our summer musical productions at Butterfield, but is also configurable and modular enough that a single speaker and a microphone and a stand can be set up and used all by itself. The total cost of that was less than $70,000. It was right about $65,000, $66,000. That's going to save the city over the next 5 years north of $300,000. That is a substantial contribution to the city's budget. And the person who did this and helped us plan this and put this together did it for free. He has spent so many hours not only helping us design it, to procure it, to solve problems with it, to troubleshoot it, to assemble it. He's even taking time to come and help teach everybody how to put all the specific parts together, has volunteered to come out and train sound engineers and city staff at our big events on how to operate all the machinery. It is truly above and beyond. And so I wanted to make sure that we took a special notice to recognize Jesse Edgal for his incredible contribution to the city and give him a huge thank you.
Do you want to do a picture with him?
Can we get a picture with you? Please come on.
Kristen. Yes.
Kristen is just throwing you under the bus there. Yeah, I understand.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
You have a picture to pull up, John, for me? Okay, our next recognition, I would like Jaxson to come forward. Jaxson, will you come up here, bud? I want to introduce everybody to Jaxson Allen, and I'm going to read a little bit about, so I saw Jaxson a post on Instagram from one of the schools, local schools here, and I was just really touched by what Jackson's done, and so his mom put together a little summary of what he did, and this, it hit home for me, and it's been a long day, so if I get emotional, Jax, it's your fault, so. Okay. Jaxson Allen is a sixth grader at Butterfield Canyon Elementary. He organized a toy drive during the month of February in honor of his younger brother, Evan, and all the children who have to visit Primary Children's Hospital. Evan has cystic fibrosis, a chronic lung disease, and is a frequent flyer at Primary Children's. Seeing firsthand the joy that new toys can bring to a child while hospitalized, Jaxson took the initiative in reaching out to local schools to see if they would like to participate in his toy drive. With the help of students at Butterfield Canyon Elementary and Oakleaf Elementary, Jaxson was able to collect and donate 16 large boxes, as you can see here, of new toys this year to donate to Primary Children's. And he can't wait to do it again next year and hopes that Jax's toy drive will continue to grow and grow. As I reached out to his mom, Stacy, Jaxson, I don't know if she told you this, but we just started a nonprofit in the city too, called the Friends of Harriman. And I've talked to them, and they want to help see your toy drive become a city toy drive every year in February. So we want to work with you to make this even bigger in your honor and in honor of your brother. So Jaxson, thank you for your example to this community of service and giving back. And we just appreciate you and honor you tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
And we want a picture with you and your family.
I know. You guys see the light platform. One over here. We'll just. Oh, okay. Okay.
Man, my sister hit me in the head with a lunchbox in elementary school, so you got a pretty good brother there.
Thank you for coming, Jaxson, and good job. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we'll move on to the public comment portion of our night. Unless there were, were there any other comments or recognitions? Sorry. Okay, so we'll move on to item 5, public comment. Audience members may bring any item to the City Council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. Public comments for this meeting will also be conducted electronically. Any person interested in addressing the council may submit a comment by emailing recorder@harriman.org or by visiting harriman.org/agendas and minutes, where there's a link to fill out an online public comment form. Your statement will be incorporated into the public record. And I was asked that the first group that wants to go first is the Harriman City Youth Council. So come on out.
Okay, hi. My name is Sunny Sokol, and I am a member of the Harriman City Youth Council. So we just wanted to thank you all for letting us for giving us the opportunity to go to the leadership conference at USU last weekend. So we all learned so much about opportunities on how to grow as people and as citizens, and we also learned a lot about how our local government works, and how we can do our part to continue keeping it functioning. I also learned many new leadership skills that we can apply as members of the Youth Council and also just in our day-to-day life, so that we can become better people and citizens of Harriman. We also learned the importance of connection, and we made a lot of new friends and new connections while we were there. So thank you so much for allowing us to have this opportunity.
I'm Kaylee Gillum, and I would also like to thank you for the opportunity to go to USU. It was very interesting, and we learned so much about team building, leadership, and government. It was really fun to meet other people from different cities, and I loved learning about my community.
Okay, so we just have some thank you notes that we wrote, so could we give those to you? Is that okay?
You bet. You bet. You're okay. Yep. You
Okay.
bet. Thank you, Becca. We'll hand these out. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Antonio?
It's me again. Thank you for the opportunity. As a part of the Culture and Diversity Committee that I am now, I would like to introduce Silviani Silveri. She's a teacher, English teacher from the Family Engagement in Harriman since 2015. She's one of my Harriman heroes. She's working a lot for us. And one of my goals in my new committee is try to talk with the Jordan District to open more opportunities to people that are not parents of the children that study in Harriman, in Jordan District. I think that there are a lot of opportunities and we are losing it. And Silviane, can you come here, please?
Good evening. Last week when Antonio asked me to come here and just share some of the things that we have accomplished and some of my personal experience as an ESL teacher, English as second language, I couldn't be more interested in sharing some of our accomplishments. This project was a pioneer project in Granite School District. It started, I think, in 2010. And in 2015, I was living in Daybreak, and I started working with them. And the communities that I was serving, it was Kearns and West Valley. And back in 2008, I was born and raised in Brazil, and I never thought that a place like Utah would have problems with gangs and violence and, so many things related to that. But then when I started teaching and working with those families, I started seeing the idea taking shape, and the community started changing. And today we have many developments, new communities being built over there, going further and further west. And my friends who were born and raised in Utah, they would always say, never buy a house on the west part of Utah. And guess where Harriman is? So, and I pointed out some of the ideas and some of the structures on the second page. Some of the simple things that it can be implemented with very low cost. We had some experience with retired citizens and residents trying to teach ESL, and it would be something not structured in a class with 60 people, 10 different citizenship, nationalities, they would, oh, how do you say Carr in your country? And that would not be efficient. So much is lost when people don't speak the language. I have students who got the police called upon them just because they couldn't explain. And so that's what I would like to share with you. And you have as Antonio said, I work for Jordan School District. We have only one family engagement center. And that's way, way far behind what Harriman needs as a city. Immigrants won't stop coming, so we need to decide if, as residents, if we will just wait and see what happens, or if we will try to create a structure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Silviana. Thank you, Antonio. Okay, the next comment form I have is from Chad Danzy.
I will be representing multiple people, so I'll need the 5-minute time. Thank you.
Oh, Chad, hold on. We're going to, I'm being correct, we're actually going to have a public hearing on your item specifically, so we'll have you, unless you're going to speak, if you're just speaking to your item, then we'll have you wait, just so it's more pertinent to that.
Okay.
So we'll have another.
That's fine as well.
Does that work?
Okay, just so I have a chance to speak.
Yep,
Thank you.
yes, absolutely. Thank you for catching that. Okay, any other public comment at this time? Okay, we'll move on to item 6.1, City Council reports. Jared, are you with us?
I am.
Any reports tonight?
No.
Okay.
I'd mentioned UFA Canyon fee. I'll update y'all on that separate.
Okay, thank you. Teddy?
I don't have any official council member reports, but I did want to give some recognition to staff for the awesome weekend we had up at USU last week with the Youth Council, for Sherry there and Destiny, the amazing stuff they do. Also, our volunteer last night, so we had a little appreciation for volunteers at the, not Cinemark, Megaplex movie theater, and thank you for event staff for setting that up. It was a very well attended, and thank you for the volunteers for showing up. And then to the ESL students, I was in Silvercrest today teaching a class to third graders, and there's 2 students in there that don't speak any English, and trying to interact and keep them entertained through just my 1-hour session was very, very tough. So I think it's a very useful comment and needed services in our community. So.
Thank you. Sherry?
Yeah, first, thanks. Oh, they all left. Huh. Thanks to the students, well, not students, but youth who participate in our youth council. I would encourage any youth to that want to be engaged in that process to apply, as applications will open pretty soon for our youth council. It's a great conference that they get to participate in at Utah State. It's a great leadership conference, and it really gives them skills to be leaders and to try and tackle some of the challenges that youth face today. So I'm appreciative for the council to budget those types of things in to really help our youth and to develop leaders out of kids that are already leaders, but help them make them even better leaders, because just what a great group of kids. I commend the parents and the community that's been involved in their lives to help them attain the things they already have so far. Sometimes they say future leaders, and that would be a wrong assessment of the kids that were with us, because they are leaders now. So I appreciate them, and I really appreciate Destiny and all the efforts she puts forth and being a really good mentor to them, and just the opportunity to have to work with them. So thank you to all involved. And then I just drove back straight to here from a water conference down in St. George. The Utah Water Users was down there this week, and gosh, this conference was way better than last year. You can imagine that maybe the atmosphere was a little more upbeat or happy or feeling optimistic about maybe our runoff. We might have some this year, which is great. I could go through a lot of stats, but I think what I want to do is actually next meeting share a slide deck that was presented, because there's some great facts from this water year. One of the slides in particular I'll tell you was, it was an image of an aerial image of snowpack. So when you get to the very top of the mountains, it was this dark red color, and then as you go down, it changed. The different colors changed, and obviously this year it's very dark red on a lot of those mountain caps. But they actually compared it to, and I'm going to be embarrassed. I can't remember if it was the 2001 or the 83, but they compared it to another really heavy snow year, and it was really interesting to see that even though it's a really heavy snow year then too, the middle stuff this year that we have that's staying is much different than it was that year, because we've had not only a really heavy snowfall, but we've also had lower than normal temperatures, as I'm sure you're all aware. So it'll be a really interesting phenomenon just to watch the runoff and you know how fast we warm up and how much that runoff affects us and where it goes. But I can tell you that we are not out of the drought, so don't be too cheery, but certainly very thankful for all the moisture that has come this year. It really gets us maybe halfway there. So so grateful for that, and it was a much funner conference to attend, just simply because the reports were much nicer for water. I'll let you go.
Thank you, Sherry. Steve?
Just a quick update from the Mosquito Abatement District. They are looking for a new director. Brian is going to be retiring. That is a huge loss. He is just a stalwart and an anchor for all the good work that they do over there. They're already getting their seasonal workers coming in and gearing up, because with all the water, there's going to be more mosquitoes. So they're going to be busy this summer. We'll keep everybody updated on the counts and any disease vectors that start showing up. But as of right now, we're just gearing up for a pretty good season. And we hope to have Brian's replacement on board before the end of the year. So. And just one other report. I got to participate today in the We the People competition over at Fort Harriman Middle School today. And it was essentially a mock Senate hearing or congressional hearing where the youth on their own, the students, researched and developed answers to some pretty challenging constitutional questions. The particular unit that I was involved with judging today had to do with an interpretation of John Locke's influence over the founders in drafting and framing the Constitution. And it was fantastic to hear these young people who on their own went out and did research, quote Supreme Court cases and philosophers Montesquieu and Locke, and going back and looking at historical precedents for their reasoning and their justification for their positions. It is exciting to know that these youth are thinking about these big issues. They are answering these hard questions, and they are forming these opinions on their own. We need people who are thinkers and analyzers and who will take the time to look into and question and come up with answers for these hard questions. Those are the people who are going to solve these problems in the future. So I'm really proud of these youth and for all the efforts they did. They did get started a little late this year at the school. They only did it in one section. Next year, they're going to roll it out across a bigger swath of the school, and they will be competing in this state competition. So I've already reserved my position to be a judge at the school next year. So it was a great experience. Just applaud the teachers and the principal for their incredible work over there. What great students we have.
Thank you for doing that, Steve. That's awesome. I just have one quick report. Yesterday morning, as part of the Friends of Harriman group, Kevin Allred, who oversees kind of the student outreach part of it, reached out to every high school so all 4 high schools came with at least a couple of students and an advisor, and we're going to create a student advisory board within the Friends of Harriman so that they're going to give their feedback to the nonprofit and try to get their input on activities or events or whatever, and they're going to have their own kind of mission statement and vision that they're going to run within, and they want to fundraise. I mean, we had an hour-and-a-half meeting, and they already want to fundraise, and they've already got ideas, and they talked together. They sat for an hour and just talked together at the different schools. I mean, you're talking Harriman and Mountain Ridge coming together, who are rivals right now, and sharing ideas about how they can do stuff together, including we're talking about a parade, a back-to-school parade, because there is a principal that doesn't want to give up his graduation parade. So we might do just a back-to-school type, and again, all by the nonprofit, just all the schools together, just a parade, all of them together. So it's just, the nonprofit is just taking off, and it's just
Is
amazing.
that principal's name start with the letter Q?
Yes, we love Todd. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to item 8.1, introduction of Justice Court Judge Lisa Garner. Who's going to take point on that? Jackie, you going to?
We didn't coordinate that part. Huh? We didn't coordinate who was going to introduce the judge, but our Jackie was recently put. Court operates. They're separate. Right? They do their thing, but they have a reporting within the city, and so those employees report through Jackie. So Jackie is going to be managing the court and working closely with our new judge. So why don't you introduce our judge?
Yeah, so just recently, the council approved an interlocal agreement with Draper to share a judge, and we went through a selection process. Well, I didn't go through that process. Mayor Palmer, I believe City Manager Trubesky was on that. So I am happy to introduce our new Justice Court Judge, Lisa Garner. I've enjoyed getting to know her. Lisa?
Should we clap? I feel like we should clap. We'll clap after. We'll clap after.
Guys clap a lot.
Welcome, Lisa. You want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Thank
A little bit of your background? And
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me, Council and Mayor. I have been practicing for about 26 years. I went to school, undergrad at University of Utah, did my law degree at BYU, and have been both a public defender, private criminal defense work, as well as prosecutor and city attorney for Midvale. So I have a pretty broad background. I started with Draper in January, took the bench there, and have enjoyed it. And I'm very excited to get started here. You have an amazing staff. I've been very impressed with how the staff has been so welcoming and helped in getting everything set up that we need to get going with the court. So I'm open to any questions, or I can tell you anything you want.
Blue or red?
Purple. Red.
Okay.
Oh, it seemed like you were purple. There was a mix there. Yeah, no, I was.
Nope.
You do, when you split that, you're less harsh than you used to be towards, but I was raised pretty red, so.
There's still time, Lisa. There's still time.
There is.
And I will say this about Lisa. During the interview process, I think every step of the way she rose to the top, because there was a big pool to start with, and then it went down to 10, I think, and then it went down to the 5, and she rose to the top in every single level from every, even those that work with her recommended her highly, and then Mayor Walker just spoke very highly of Judge Garner. So I think we're fortunate to have Judge Garner here, and we look forward to working with you. So.
Thank you. Likewise. Yeah, I just echo, we look forward to working with you and excited to move forward on fixing that vacancy, and we're excited for what you'll do for us. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can attest, the mayor just kept bragging all the way. He's like, she's going to be great. He was very pumped up to have you. So based on his enthusiasm, I can definitely say we're very glad to have you here.
Thank you. No pressure, right?
No pressure.
Not at all.
Thank you. I'm excited as well. I can't wait.
Okay.
So.
And it's late, and you don't have to stay.
I'm kind of excited about the next item. So.
Yeah, you'll want to stay for this next one.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Welcome, Judge Garner. I think that's,
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay.
Now
Thank
we
you.
can applaud.
Now we can applaud. I'm excited for this item too. Item 8.2, an ESGR award recognition for Police Chief Troy Carr and Commander Brent Adamson. We're going to turn the time to Kim Watts. Kim, come on up. Oh, we're going to mix it up a little? Okay. We can do that.
He's always a tough act to follow anyhow, so. Anyway, Mayor Palmer and the Harriman City Council members, my name is Bill Rapley, and I'm the training director for the Utah Employer Supported Guard and Reserve, which is a office of the Department of Defense. And so also with me this evening is some of our committee members. Of course, committee chair, state chair is Mr. Watts, region number 2 chair, Mr. Allen, committee members, Ms. Maurer, Mr. Williams, and Ms. Tompkinson. We are honored to be here to recognize the supportive actions and values through your supervisors and their actions. And we'll be presenting awards for Harriman's support of the Guard and Reserve members who are employees of the city. And so now I'll turn the time over to Mr. Watts so he can kick off the awards presentation.
Mayor Palmer, council members, I'm going to tell you a little bit about employer support of the Guard and Reserve. It is a Department of Defense agency that was created in 1972 to help develop cooperation between civilian employers and their employees who serve with the National Guard and Reserve. Why is that important, you may ask? Well, half of our national defense is organized in the National Guard and Reserve. Half. And they are civilians. They have civilian employment. Some go to school and are employed. They have community responsibilities. But they also have a responsibility to respond to call-ups to protect our nation and preserve our national defense. Since 2004, the Utah National Guard, I'll just speak for them, has deployed thousands of young men and women in the global war on terror. The first deployments were for 18 months. Now they're about 12 months. But they have to leave their families, they have to leave their jobs, and they volunteer for this to be sent to faraway places and do dangerous things. And without employers who support that service, we wouldn't be able to flesh out the national defense, as I mentioned. We are here tonight to recognize 2 of your employees and for the support that they provide, but I also want to mention that there is the highest award the Department of Defense bestows upon employers is called the Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award. We just finished with that nomination season. There's 3 categories: large business, small business, and public sector. And one of your employees, who we'll meet in just a minute, submitted a very well-written nomination for Harriman City to be recognized for that award. We quickly edited that, did some research, and we have forwarded that to the Department of Defense for consideration. The selection should be made and announced sometime June, late June, maybe early July. And we've got our fingers crossed that Harriman City will come away with one of those Freedom Awards. There are only 15 employers in the entire country who are recognized with that award every year. So we are happy to be here. Mayor Palmer, you were exposed to the National Guard today. You want to take my last minute and
Your last. Well, I was just invited. I was honored to be a part of this. It's definitely not me getting the recognition tonight, but because of my role, I was invited today to fly. I was in a KC 350.
135.
135. It was an early morning. That's a KC 135, a refueling mission. We went on a refueling mission. We were going to meet up with the B-2s. We tried to meet up with the B-2s, right?
Right.
They were grounded because of fog, frozen when they're out of their base. So we ended up meeting over the West Desert with the F-35s out of Hill Air Force Base. And we got to get right down in there where they do the refueling mission, and I've got pictures, and we could see the F-35s come in. They'd start on one side of the window, you look out, see them, they're right there, you can see the pilots. They're close enough, you can see the pilots right there, and they swing under, and you see them refuel, then you see them kind of dip off and fly away. And so I was with Cody today and it was, as you said, leading up to this was the moment of a lifetime, the experience of a lifetime. And I'm still floating. It was the coolest thing I've ever been a part of, and so we appreciate you.
We were happy to have you today. Thanks for being there. And I would hate to depend on a B-2 on a foggy day if I were an Army guy fighting the bad guys, so.
Right.
Yeah, but I would like to at this time introduce Amy Maurer, who is going to preside over the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council Member. Thanks for having us. So we are here, as you know, to recognize 2 employees through your police department. And to do that, we have a certain way to do that, and it's called the Patriot Award. And I'm just here to tell you what that is and how we got here. We're here to celebrate these 2 employees through a nomination from Officer Ruger. He submitted it in wanting to say thank you and recognize the supervisors for his support. As you've heard already, for someone to choose to go serve our country and leave his family and leave his work, for him or her to go and not have to worry about a job to come back to because they have the support of their coworkers, their supervisors, their administration, I could only imagine it would lessen the stress of having to leave and then have to come back. So we got a great nomination from Officer Ruger for Chief Carr and Division Commander Adamson. So I'm here, going to turn the time over to him and kind of talk about why he's here and why he nominated them, and then we'll present the award.
Thank you, Amy.
I have 2 write-ups here, 2 nominations, so I'm just going to read them side by side. Before I get into it, again, I'm Officer Benjamin Rugerbrecht. I'm an aviation warrant officer for the Utah National Guard. Part of me doing these write-ups wasn't just on behalf of me or the ESGR, it was also on behalf of other service members at this department. I know a lot of us are all very grateful for the city that we work for. So without further ado, I'll get into it. The first one will be for Commander Brent Adamson. Commander Brent Adamson has been nothing but accommodating to service members' obligations. Even in times of most inconvenience and hardship to the department, Commander Adamson has bent over backward to ensure our service members are recognized and taken care of. Commander Adamson has even been willing to cover shifts himself in our absence. Further, Commander Adamson took it upon himself to ensure that me, my wife, and my baby's benefits continued while I was on active orders. This alleviated any additional stress that I would have had otherwise. Commander Adamson's hard work and support have not gone unnoticed by the service members under his command. The next is Chief Troy Carr. Chief Troy Carr has been overtly supportive and accommodating for service members within his ranks. With the help of the command team, he has instilled an outstanding culture at the Harriman Police Department that is supportive of all of his employees. For his service members, he has been willing to hire and support those who have service obligations. He looks highly upon those who serve and considers them a hand-picked asset for his department. Despite knowing my Army Flight School commitment, Chief Carr was not only willing to hire me, he viewed it as a strength as opposed to a weakness. I have watched Chief Carr personally cover patrol shifts for his officers when emergencies arise. Historically, I've never seen a chief willing to personally cover down for his officers. Chief Carr has made sure his command staff ensures the service members and their families are cared for while they're away. Chief Carr has reached out to myself and my wife while I was on orders to make sure that we had everything we need. Chief Carr also is personally invested in his officers and gets to know them on a personal level. He practices what he preaches and stays involved in his officers. Chief Carr's hard work and support have not gone unnoticed by his officers or his service members under his command. We give a round of applause for him. Here's the award citation of the write-up along with
Yes.
Yep, squeeze in. Yep. All right, 1, 2, 3, cheese. Perfect.
We're good.
Turn it backwards.
Some cool things tonight, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Sunny's so cute.
Get that word for
Oh, there is. Both of my sisters currently.
Thank you all for coming.
Gillum, her older sister was in it.
Okay, we will move on to item 9, a public hearing tonight, and consideration of a resolution to approve filing eminent domain action. So we're going to start with Bryce.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. So to give a quick summary on the Harriman Main Street project, that's what this discussion is on. I just wanted to go through a quick summary of where we got to today. So as you know, Harriman Main Street has been a project that has been long coming for the city. Currently, the project scope is from 6225 West to 7300 West. And it's got a couple different names, Harriman Main Street, Harriman Highway, in some areas it's 131 South, right? So this project is to take the existing 2-lane road and widen it to 3 lanes, install bike lanes, install curb and gutter, install landscaping in the park strip, including trees and street lighting, and to install sidewalks. It addresses a lot of the concerns, safety concerns that we have out there. Additionally, it'll rebuild the road. If you've been out there recently, it is a very rough road in need of repair. So this project will rebuild the road, new asphalt, new road, increase capacity of the road, install turn lanes at intersection, right turn lanes, left turn lanes. And so, yeah, so with that, the process that we go through is to have a design, put through kind of several reviews and see how we can best fit the project in the city. And as you know, we've come to City Council several times to discuss the project. Originally, it was going to be a wider road, an 80-foot road. As we looked at budget and the impacts to residents, we looked at being able to keep the same capacity of the road, but by skinning it up a little bit outside of the intersections. So it widens back out at the intersections for those turn lanes, but we got rid of the wider shoulders that were like 9-10 feet shoulders and brought it down to 4-foot shoulders for bike lanes, right? That's 4.5 feet. Now that we're up to speed on the project, as part of that design, we hire a professional surveyor, and they go through, and their job is to identify exactly where the existing right-of-way is, where the proposed right-of-way would be, and where we need to acquire property. So they look at the county recorder's office of everything that's been recorded on a parcel. They also look at county right-of-way surveys. And so the professional survey is the one that sets up for us to understand how much property that we need to acquire. They set up the existing right-of-way, and that's how we know, okay, we need to acquire 20 feet on this side of the road or 3 feet on this side of the road based on what the professional surveyor has researched and submitted to us and justified. So with that, there are several kinds of acquisitions. Obviously, the major one is where we need to buy property to install roadway improvements, such as sidewalk, the park strip we consider as part of the roadway, curb gutter, the widening portion of the road, right? There is also a perpetual easement that in some parcels we were looking to purchase so that we could move the power poles outside of the park strip and go behind the sidewalk. So that is a easement that property owners still maintain the land. It is their land, but the easement on top of that land allows power lines to be installed in that area so that we could move them out of the way of the roadway widening. And then lastly, there's a permit to enter and construct. And for several parcels, we didn't need to buy right-of-way. We had all of the existing right-of-way we needed to install the road, but some of the driveways and stuff to tie back in need to tie back into their private property. And so this is a permit that allows the contractor permission to enter their property and to construct those improvements that will actually be their property after the project. So it's a benefit to the property owner in that it's not Harriman City property that they're installing, it's actually the property owner that if it's fill, if it's a driveway tie-in, whatever it is, it creates a gradual slope from the sidewalk back towards the property. So those are the three kind of acquisitions or permits that we were looking for on this project. And a majority of all of those have gone well in negotiations and have been signed by property owners but there are a few that we have not been able to come to an agreement on price or area that needs to be acquired. There are a few that we haven't had responses from. We've hired a right-of-way agent to help us make sure that we go through this process the right way. And she's been really good to reach out and continually reach out to property owners. And so there's really two reasons why a property would be on the list for consideration of eminent domain. Number one is that, like I said, we couldn't come to an agreement. The gap is too far for us to understand. And then the second one is just that we can't get a response. We can't negotiate. And so those are kind of the two main reasons that they might pop up. Additionally, there are some major timelines for this project that we've been trying to hit, as you guys know, since the beginning of this project. So the first milestone that's some external forces acting on the project is we, as part of the roadway widening project, we are reinstalling existing private irrigation for the irrigation companies. Because our roadway is impacting their existing facilities, we said, hey, if we impact it, we'll replace it. So the good thing is that the irrigation companies have been really good to work with. The bad thing is that irrigation season's coming, and we have an agreement with them that we would install the irrigation by April 15th. And our contractor's obligated to do that, but that's coming pretty soon. And so there's some properties that have irrigation as part of them that we have not been able to clear at this point. And so without being able to have a permit or have the right-of-way acquired, that commitment can't be fulfilled at this time. Additionally, Rocky Mountain Power, like we talked about, is planning on moving their power lines. They've actually already started on the east end of the project to move their power lines east of 6400 West. They are planning to move to what they call phase 2 and 3 in mid-April, so about the same time as when we need to be done with irrigation. They'll be moving to the west. And if you've ever worked with Rocky Mountain Power, it's amazing that we even got a date from them to do this work. So we're really excited that they're on the schedule, and we know that they're coming to do the work. The part of the issue that we have is that we need those easements for Rocky Mountain Power to move to. Otherwise, they will come out and will not move their poles. So those are two considerations on why this project has a timeline, where in different cases, maybe the timeline isn't as urgent. The third one is that we are working with the school to establish a safe walk route from 7300 West area to the new Oakleaf Elementary. And the contractor has committed to install sidewalk from 7300 West to Danzy Boulevard, well, formerly known as Danzy Boulevard, currently known as Bethany Oak Drive, up to the school. And there, again, some of the properties that are on the list for consideration are necessary for us to have to install the sidewalk for that safe walk route by next school year, so by August, essentially. And so that adds another layer of urgency of this project. Each parcel that is up for consideration has had a professional appraisal done on the property, and in each case of the parcels, we have negotiated or offered more than the appraisal value. So the baseline kind of starts at the appraisal value, and then negotiations, we've tried to work with the residents and offer more than the appraised value by a professional appraiser. The original offers were sent for on one of 2 days, January 18th or January 25th. So that means we're about at 64 days of negotiation, or since the offer has been sent to the property owner. And then if it was offered on the 25th, a week later, then we're at 57 days. So the state code requires a minimum of 30 days negotiation. And so we're close. In one case, we have doubled that. In another case, we're a couple days off from doubling the minimum. Like I said, this project is unique. It does have a timeline to it, whereas some projects we could try to continue, but we've kind of hit an impasse for these properties, in that this enables the project to go forth and doesn't paralyze the project, while, and this is a good clarification, and Todd can maybe speak to this a little bit, that even with the action of taking eminent domain, negotiation doesn't need to stop. It can continue if the property owner is willing to continue negotiating with the city. And there's several options on how this can be worked out, and those options were sent out to the residents. Yeah, and I guess that's about all I have. I can answer questions now and after the public hearing, but is there any questions that I can answer?
I have a question. It might be more for Todd, just understanding the Utah Codes 78B6, talking about eminent domain things. Yeah. It lists specific things that we have to do as a city in terms of notifying negotiating, having notices. I know 3 of them for sure I can personally attest to have been accomplished. Can you certify that all 7 of those steps have been followed, that we're compliant with all of those things?
Yeah, I worked with Bryce. We went over Utah code to make sure that we were compliant with all the requirements before we started this and presenting this to you. We have met all the requirements to file an eminent domain action.
Okay, thank you.
And will you, just kind of tagging on what Bryce said, will you just clarify the process, like, so that it's very clear that if we vote on this tonight to move forward with these proceedings, it doesn't close the negotiation. We just clarify, like, kind of the steps after this.
Yeah, like in any suit, suits don't stop parties from negotiating with each other to settle the issues. I think that's the preferable option. There's nothing in the eminent domain part stating that we can't have and continue that negotiations, and I know we will continue to try to have those negotiations.
Okay.
For those that, obviously there's a couple that you have been able to contact with. Those you have been in contact with, and there's such a disparate value determination here, what is the reason for that difference? I mean, we have an appraisal that, I mean, you can question appraisal. I guess you can get a different appraisal. They're usually within the ballpark of each other, but.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in general, for those that we have been able to communicate back and forth with and negotiate with, the big issue is they do have an issue with the price that the appraiser submitted and put in the report, that they thought that that should be higher. And more substantially, they claim that they own to the center of the roadway. So they want to be compensated for the existing roadway area, which we've kind of had discussions that in city or state code, that if a road has been publicly used for more than 10 years, then it's dedicated as a public use. There are kind of aspects on how that is accomplished, but that's one of the reasons why our appraiser doesn't value the center of the road, is because it should be public at this point. It's been a road for more than 50 years. We've looked back on all of the aerials. There are some opportunities for private landowners to close the road, to claim it as private property, and that's part of the dispute, is that they believe they have, and we do not believe that that has taken place at this point. And so there's that, and then there's also some old county surveys that show it as right-of-way even in early 1900s. So there, yeah, I guess the biggest dispute is where the existing right-of-way line is. We say it's where the road ends, and it's been used by the public for 30 years, and that it is a public road today. They would claim, and I'll give them the chance to really kind of say how they would interpret that, but they would claim that we need to pay for it and that it's their private property.
So just so I'm clear, what's the ultimate arbiter determining who's right in that dispute? How does that get resolved? Is that through the ombudsman's office? Is that through an attorney? Or, I mean, through a judge that has to go to court? How does that get resolved?
So if the parties can't agree on it, then there's a couple of options. The Utah Property Rights Ombudsman can act as a mediator or arbiter in those cases, and we present the legal arguments as well as the evidence supporting those arguments to that to the ombudsman, and the ombudsman can help guide the parties in giving his opinion on what it should be. So that's a prequel, and that can be done actually during a court case, and the ombudsman can ask for it to be done during the court case. If mediation isn't, or an arbitration isn't requested, then a judge has to make that decision.
Okay, so ultimately there is an authority beyond our opinion and the landowner's opinion that will ultimately resolve that dispute over where that line is drawn.
Absolutely. And really the question before judges, where is that, what are the property boundaries, and then what is the value of the land?
Right. So at this point, our action, whatever we decide that is tonight, doesn't resolve that issue.
No.
It doesn't make a claim on that issue. We're not taking a position on that issue other than we believe that the analysis we've completed, the engineering reports, the survey, the county records, the tax records, the right-of-way issues, the aerial photos, all of that stuff, we feel justifies that our position on the land value is correct. But ultimately, if it's determined that the landowner's value analysis is correct, that their land is more substantial than what we're predicting, we will have to compensate them fully for the value of that land at the fair market value, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good clarification. Even taking eminent domain action, the property owner, either the end result is a settlement where we both agree on a price, or a fair market value is determined by a judge. So either way, there should be a fair market value determined with either an agreement between the city and the property owner, or through a judge, or through the property ombudsman office. So one clarification, the parcels are listed in the staff report. On the map, it shows one extra parcel that is not up for consideration for eminent domain. It's on the north side of the road, just east of Twisted Oaks. Again, it's not in the consideration. For some reason, it was included on the map, but that one is not part of this discussion, just to clarify. Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Bryce. Okay, at this point, we will open this to public comment. Again, same rules apply as before, 2 minutes for an individual, 5 minutes for a group. So at this time, if you'll just come forward and state your name and...
I need 5 minutes as a group, but I just wanted to talk with you for a second, but I'd like to refute almost everything he said. And if you'd like to discuss that, I could, but I need to give you my response as well. But there's a lot of things that I hate to say he's lying to you. But first of all, I'll read this to you. Dear Harriman City Council and Mayor, I'm here to share with you my frustrations with Harriman City's lack of transparency and just pressure placed on me and my neighbors in the Harriman Highway Road widening project. As a property owner along this roadway, I am directly affected by this project and by your voting today. On March 8th, at the last City Council meeting, I came to you to plead for increased transparency and openness with the Harriman Highway Road widening project, and for help in relieving the unjust pressure placed on me and my neighbors by Harriman City Engineering Department. I discussed the problems of bullying by acquisition agents to sign vague paperwork, misleading promises by engineers to obtain grants, and a lack of communication needed to create any sort of compromise. Due to these many concerns with how the project was being done, I requested you to put the Harriman Highway project on hold until property owners were fully informed and paid for their land and property being confiscated. What did I get in return? On March 10th, I received a letter from Harriman City telling me that you, the mayor and city council, would be voting to condemn my property and several of my neighbors' properties today. I am so disappointed in this decision to continue to bully me and my neighbors despite our concerns and your lack of compassion and respect toward your constituents with whom you represent. I cannot believe that you are unjust leaders who do not care about those who you represent, so therefore I must believe that you are being misinformed by your engineering department and by those in charge of this project. Therefore, I will attempt to explain to you why you should not vote for condemnation of these properties, but instead work with me and our coalition of neighbors concerned with how this project is being done. First, my neighbors and I live on Harriman Highway. We have seen traffic increase on this road and understand the needs of improving Harriman Highway. We are not against the project, but instead how it is being done. Harriman Engineering Department did not properly inform neighbors of the street widening project. The first time many neighbors were told of these plans was by an acquisition agent who was threatening them to sign vague paperwork to give Harriman free access to their property for 2 years or have their property condemned. This is bullying, straight and simple. Bullying has no place in city government, and it is the city council's responsibility to ensure that the city acts in an ethical and responsible manner. Second, when our coalition of neighbors and I demanded that Harriman City have an open house, it took a month from our request for Harriman City Engineering Department to decide to meet with us as a group. By this time, the excavating company had already started the project. Why did Harriman Engineering Department wait so long to publicly inform neighbors of this project? This meeting should have occurred a year in advance. Myself and many other neighbors affected by this project have been trying to get their questions answered for over 2 months, and still they have not been answered. Harriman City Engineering has been unable to even tell neighbors what property they are taking, and have not even staked any of the properties you are voting on condemning today. In fact, in the case of one property that you are threatening to condemn, Harriman City has not even sent paperwork telling the owner that you are voting on condemning this project today. Harriman City must be responsible to its constituents and be transparent in its decisions. By not sharing information with those affected by your decisions is akin to having a closed-door meeting. This is undemocratic and against the city's founding principles of transparency. Third, Harriman City should have purchased all properties needed before approving the bid and starting this project. You simply do not build a home on land that you do not own. When Harriman Engineering Department came to myself and my neighbors to be willing sellers, they stated they would pay for our properties, not try to find loopholes or ways to take the ground without compensation. When Harriman Engineering originally requested grants from Salt Lake County, they were granted appropriate funding. But when WCG Engineering did their appraisals without property owners' input and knowledge, they attempted to find any loophole and way not to pay property owners appropriately. Because of this, Harriman City lost out in over $500,000 in county funding they could have used to pay for properties, and instead ended up with many angry property owners. If you condemn these properties today, you will have permanently lost out on these funds. By voting against condemnation, at least you could request new appraisals with the property owner's help and reapply for these funds from Salt Lake County. This could create a win-win situation rather than just vote for a lose-lose situation for everyone involved. Finally, as stated before, we as neighbors desire to work with you and want this roadway improved, but it must be done responsibly and in an ethical way. We do not want to be bullied. We want to be informed about what's going on. We want to be properly compensated and have an input in what appraisals are being done on our properties. This does not need to be a lose-lose situation for all involved. We can all win together. Let's be creative and work together and make this a successful project. I know this can be done, but you must vote against condemnation and instead actively work towards meeting property owners' needs and working towards a compromise. We will work with you, but you must work with us. Please make the right decision and vote against condemnation. Thank you, Chad Danzy. Would you like some discussion on the issues that he brought up?
We cannot at this point, Chad.
Okay.
So, we appreciate it.
You don't want to?
We cannot at this point, Chad. So.
Okay.
And I'll need you to,
It's fine.
I'll need to move on, Chad. I appreciate it.
I'm very disappointed.
Chad, I need you to.
Fine.
Thank you.
But someone else, if he's representing someone else.
If there's somebody else from your group, Chad, feel free. They can step in and at this point.
Can I represent somebody else?
Not at this time, Chad, no. Chad, not at this time.
But they can speak.
They can speak.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Chantel Kenny. I also live on Harriman Highway, just north of Chad.
A couple of issues that I think are important to talk about is you've talked about some reasons for condemning the ground. One is it is the private irrigation company. The ground you are condemning doesn't have any effect. There is no private irrigation on that ground. So I don't know why that could even be a purpose for condemning this ground. The second one you talked about is the safe walk to school route. Currently, you had to create a safe walk to school route. There are two sides of this road. The current side that you're condemning has no development. So there's no reason for that safe walk to school route. There are many other ways to be able to do that and make it successful, but you need to talk with the property owners. This doesn't have to be a lose-lose situation.
I agree. And I actually would encourage you to ask some questions as he previously asked, since we have a few seconds left here.
And I appreciate that, but it's just not the time. That's just not how, unfortunately, how it works right now, so.
I would just like to say that if you talk about there is continued mediation and continued things there, but once you move to this point and you force property owners to go to the ombudsman and to a lawyer, then you're moving basically towards litigation. It is going to cost you more, and it creates a lose-lose situation for both people. You may think that by being heavy-handed is going to help you, but it will not. It's not going to work for either person. In many cases, we have been asking questions to try to get things answered, and Harriman City has not been helpful. They have not answered those questions. There's a list of action items they have not followed up, clear back from January, and lately, the last one was February 6th, and that's a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Go ahead.
And I would just encourage anyone else here, because there's rules that we have to abide by, that you can only have a certain amount of time, but if there's someone else here that would like to address any of these further concerns, please come up. Yeah.
Come on up, boy. You bet, Boyd.
Hi, guys. This is Jared. Can I interject for a second?
Give us 1 second here, Jared. Hold on 1 second. Go ahead, Boyd.
You what?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Jared was speaking.
Jared was online. We're just
virtually.
My name is Boyd Danzy, and Blake Thomas in Blair. What's the other assistant engineer?
Jonathan.
Bryce. Jonathan came and visited me at my house, and as they sat down, they said, we would like to widen the road. We're in it 2 or 3 years or more. They came to my house, and it was, and as we sat down, they said, we'd like you to sign a willing agreement that you would sell your ground. And I said, sure, I'll help you sell the ground. I want to help you increase the road, whatever. So we sat down, we signed all the agreements so they could get fund money. He said, we will be able to get money from county and state grants that will help you so that we'll be able to purchase your land. I said, fine. We signed it all. They came back about, and it was all done. Then we come back and they say, we're here, we want to take your ground, only we don't want to take and buy your ground now. We found out that we can just take and use your ground because your ground was part of the roadway. We paid taxes on this. We have surveys the same as your engineering department does. And the engineering and the surveys show the road, the center of the road. And we also have produced information to show in a 10-year period of time that we've used that road for 24 hours straight and use it. You have, and I know this will end up with the court, but the item I want to get to you real quick is why can't people sit down and talk to you and be honest and say, we don't plan on buying your ground, we plan on taking your ground. And that's exactly what they're doing to a lot of the other people. We just need to be honest. Think about it. If they were going to take 1 acre of your ground with just 3 or 4 lots of a subdeveloper, and they wouldn't take, you would be upset. I want this road the same as you want it, but I was misrepresented. And I'll be right honest with you. We've talked about it since. Misrepresentation and people finding out that they could maybe have a right to take the ground without having to pay for it.
Thank you, Boyd.
I hope that you don't get your money if that's the way you operate.
Thank you, Boyd.
Thank you for your at least listening to me.
My name is James Kenny. I live just north of the Danzies as well. And I guess my only complaint is if the engineering department gets more than 5 minutes and you guys can ask questions back and forth, how come that can't be also done with with Chad and Boyd as well? Other than that, that's really all I have to ask. Can you answer that question, or is that not something where you can interact with us on that either?
I mean, it's just not an interaction time, yeah. That's just the way it's set up, yeah.
It can be interacted, or you can interact with them, but not.
Yeah, it's just the way it's set up, yeah.
How does that get changed?
By policy, probably.
Is citizens, though, I mean, it's policy, but if we wanted to, obviously the Danzies are pretty upset. They can't get their questions answered at this point. So what would a citizen of Harriman have to do to work toward a different policy? How would we change that?
I would say reach out to us.
As part of our steps, we do have the right to conduct additional questions and discussion after the public hearing portion, but the rules regarding a public hearing and how much time is given and how it works is very restrictive on us. Once that portion is completed, we have a little more flexibility to have some further discussion.
Like I said, just if you guys have to make that change, just keep that in mind. Is on the citizen side, if you can't interact with them, but you can interact with the others, and it's just frustrating.
And I'll be honest, I did miss, and then the next step, there's a step where we can engage with the residents. So I'll be honest, we've never had this in my time, so I'm new to this, and we've never had to get to this point, so there's a step where we can actually deal with some questions and answers. After the hearing portion, we can, yep. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Yeah.
I'm Josh Butterfield. I live at the further east end of the development there. And I don't know that they're condemning any of our property. They're trying to work with us on purchasing a little bit of the property that they plan to acquire for the sidewalk to go on. But some of the information for the roadway heights and different things create a issue with maybe the homeowner or private property owner. And I don't know that they're all clear on it with us and want to actually talk it through. I think they've tried with me. I don't know about the others. I can't really speak for them, but I'd like a little bit more resolve with that and a little more clarity. I think they plan to take half of our fence, but not all of it, but it would change a lot of different items on our property, landscape and different things where I don't feel that they've taken into compensation and thought about. It seems like they're trying to push things through fairly fast, and I understand the laws and why they are able to push this eminent domain onto us, because people can be stern and not give up their property when they need to. Us as homeowners, we're not trying to be that way. We're trying to work with them, but we don't really see the major plan and the whole grasp of why they need so many feet for this park strip and beautification to have to come into our property. Some of it is utilities, I understand that, and they had requested, I think they already have 6 feet into my fence line, which is that 10 feet that they have. They want to go an additional behind my fence line after they purchase little property, and I wasn't really satisfied with that. And it's not real clear to me my actual rights of whether I have to agree to that or whether I don't. And I'd rather not end up in litigation. I would rather just move forward and try to work with them. So I hope that you take into consideration that these guys that are upset, they're upset for a reason. And I feel like they're trying to bring it to our attention as residents in the city to just give us information to help us also. And they're not trying to just say, well, the city's just being ridiculous and they're not working with us. They're not saying that. They're just trying to help us as residents within the city understand the process, and maybe he had mentioned the abundancemen, if we could, you know, work with them. So they're trying to help us also, and I hope you take that into consideration, that maybe it could be resolved a little bit without eminent domain. And obviously, if you feel that you need to push that maybe later, but maybe it could be postponed and you guys could work something out. Just, that's my 2 cents, and I hope you guys take that into consideration.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Doug Shivers, and I live on Main Street. Sherry, I don't know if you remember, but I called you, a couple years ago complaining about the road. And it has been, that road has just been an absolute nightmare at times. With all the development that has gone on to the west of us, it has been unbearable at times. I would always caution my family, before you turn left into my house, look in that rearview mirror, make sure somebody's not passing you, because it has happened. When people go to the side of you because they're mad because you're trying to turn left into your house. Yes, I live on Main Street or West Harriman Highway or whatever it is now, but it is turning into my home. I am very excited about this road. I'm excited for a center turn lane. It's dirt. It's a little bit of dirt that I have to give up so that little children can walk to school safely. It's dirt. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Motion by Sherry, second by Teddy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any discussion amongst the council? Oh, Jared, are you on? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to try to clarify the process for folks, because that seemed to be the issues. They're expecting a back and forth during the public hearing, and that's not the way it works. I've got a bunch of other notes that I can go over. I'll let you guys discuss first, and if I need to address those, then I will. It's easier for you guys to discuss in person.
Okay. Thanks, Jared.
I'll start off. I want to thank you guys for showing up tonight and giving your voice in public comment. It's never easy taking somebody's land or paying for it or showing a market value for property. That's why we use third parties, and that's why we have appraisers. And I have a close friend that lives on Main Street, and he started talking to me about his process. It's definitely a different story than was painted tonight by the citizens on some of the aspects. And he was in negotiation for a while to figure his own land out. But there is a process, and from the process that we took, the persons that did this are one of the best, if not the only in state, that actually deal with this type of procedure and processes. I think the information that our staff has given us is very clear and concise. And only being in here a year and a half, I don't think we've been led astray from our staff at any point in time, especially with the Main Street project. And as one of the speakers said, it's been going on for at least 2.5, 3 years of a process, and every time we speak about it, it's a public meeting. So the transparency, I'm not sure how more transparent we can be. I'm sure there's some things in our process in-house we can clean up, maybe open houses or more information, but a lot of these steps are in processes of we have to get the contractor first, then we have to go acquire the land, we have to go get all the bids first to know what our costs are till we can approve it as a budgetary item. Again, it's not easy, especially when it's been long time family land or understanding what is owned and who owns what and right-of-ways. But that's, I empathize with you guys. I mean, I know you've been out here a long time, so.
I have a few, and then I'll let others go, and then I'll follow up. But one of the comments was the case of one property that you are threatening to condemn. Harriman City has not even sent paperwork telling the owner that you're voting on condemning this property today. Can someone address that? Has there been a property owner that was not notified? You were not notified?
Will you come up? Can you come up? And sorry, we just want to make sure you're heard. And
Claudia Dancy. We own a property 6672 West, which is across from another property we have, which is 6607. 6607 was, we were given an appraisal and so forth on that. 6672 was not. And when some of the city officials came out to check it out, they realized that it hadn't come through. So that is, now I did notice that he said there was a property on the north that on the map it shows it was condemned. This might be the property he's talking about. But on the map it says 6672 has been condemned. We've never gotten anything on that from Nadia Baker or anybody. So that's the property he's talking about.
perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
I don't think that's part of the condemnation proceeding.
It's not part of the condemnation. It's not on the list. So that's clarified, right? There's not been any property that we are taking.
Yeah,
moving-
so what she said is correct. That property is not part of the consideration of tonight. And it was shown on the map, but that was a mistake. The list that is considered did not include that property.
It's these 8 that we have in the staff report, that is accurate. There aren't any others. We're not
Correct.
missing anything. Okay.
Correct.
Do you have a comment, Chad? Sorry.
I do, that's all right. The problem is 6607. On that property, there is the dispute on the ground. Harriman City, and another thing that they were supposed to do was supposed to give that ground to my parents, and they have not done so. That has been over 2 years where they haven't fulfilled their agreement. And it still hasn't been done, and yet they're condemning the property without fulfilling and making sure that that property has been turned over to them appropriately. And they are in works with Ivory Homes on that, but it has not been done. And so you are condemning another property that there's a dispute on as well there.
Do you have a comment on that, Blake?
We don't own that property yet. Ivory Homes does, so
Yeah.
Chad's correct. We're working on acquiring it from Ivory, but it's been in Ivory's hands since they purchased the property from the Danzy family when they did Hidden Oaks.
This is one of the list of action items that have not been done that I was talking about. There's a lot of problems.
Okay, thanks, Chad.
I have a lot of notes, and I don't know, I'll be a little bit. Government closest to the people is best, right? That's what we hear all the time. And sometimes when you're on this side of the dais, government closest to the people is not best, because I'm looking out at people I know, respect, and appreciate, right? And so this side is tough to make these kind of decisions. I can tell you that for sure. I've interacted with all of you, many of you personally, and I appreciate those interactions, and I appreciate you as people. So hopefully we can keep this as an issue and not personal. I get saddened when I hear terms like threatening, bullying, lying, heavy-handed, because I know I can only speak for myself, but everyone on this project that has reached out to me, I've responded to. Every time someone's reached out to me. So I feel like I try very hard to be informed about the decisions I make. I don't just assume, and I respect our staff, But even in respecting them, I never just assume that they're right and telling me everything. I question them most all the time. And it's not because I don't respect and appreciate what they do. It's because my job is to say yes or no to these things, so I have to understand them. I, again, today spent about 3 hours of my drive home on the phone asking questions, speaking with Chad Danzy, understanding his concerns, following up with staff, trying to understand, why there's a misunderstanding, what's going on, how do we get over this hurdle so we don't have to go through this process. And there was a few things that he listed, and Chad, I again tried to call you back to follow up with you on those things and left you a message so that you would understand that I did look through those things. I think that there is a place that we're at right now that feels like we're just butting heads. I don't know how we get past, you believe you own to the center of the road, and perhaps there's documentation or laws that say that you don't. And so I do believe that is something that is probably going to have to be decided by somebody other than us. Now, unfortunately, that takes litigation or a process to go through, and I would hope that we don't have to get there. But I respect that you guys have had this property in your family for longer than your life, and so I respect that and the attachment that comes to that and the rights that are part of owning property. But on this side of the aisle, I have to say, but what does the documentation prove to me? What does it provide that shows evidence of that? Because our job is to, and I see you have those documents, Chad, but again, we have other documents. So then it's conflicting, and there has to be somebody that has authority that says, here's what is the real ownership, okay? So I don't know how to resolve that on our end, because part of our job is to be stewards of taxpayers' money. And we're not taking any property. That was used a lot of times too, taking property. We're paying fair market value for any property that is utilized in this road widening. Taking it, I think it's illegal to take property, is it not? Yeah. So it's called a taking. So we're going to pay fair market value. Now, there might be some discrepancy over, well, your appraiser came in too low and we didn't like your appraisal. So there's a cool thing through the ombudsman that you could go through, and you've been notified, everybody, well, there's been notice of that. I know that the people who spoke to, well, the Danzys definitely know that they can go through the ombudsman and ask the ombudsman to have the city pay for another appraisal. And then you go, well, so the city's getting two appraisals. But the nice thing is you can give direction on that. You can say, yeah, I want to use that appraiser. So you have some buy-in to say, I don't just want you to pick the appraisal again. You get to participate in that and say, yeah, okay, I'll be good with that appraisal. And so that appraiser comes out and we do another appraisal. And then if they're really off on those two appraisals, obviously, then that's a problem. We need to look at that. So I also talked to Bryce about that today. And in addition to the appraisal that we did, there is the Corridor Preservation Fund that was been referred to today, the $500,000 Corridor Preservation Fund. So in order to get that, we can't just go to the county and say, oh, here's our appraisal, this is what you should pay. They also are going to have some oversight in that. So just anticipating that, we also had another industry expert look at the appraisal and say, does this look like it is correct? Is this appraisal in line with what you would see for fair market value on this property? So 2 levels have been done, but there's always an avenue for this other level to go back and get another appraisal, because I don't want to be unfair. I believe that if we're going to come through and take property that's been in your family for hundreds of years, then we should compensate for that. And so fairly. But when I say fairly, it has to be within the realms of a reasonable appraisal. I can't pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars over an appraisal value, because that would not be just to every other citizen in this city who pays taxes, because that's the money that's going to be used. It's not, even if we use corridor preservation fund, that's still taxpayer money. That's money out of your pocket and my pocket that we put towards purchasing this property. So I don't want to know that my legislator is spending it well in excess of what the land is worth to pay for a piece of property. That would be irresponsible. And I can't, in good conscience, make that decision. So I believe that we are doing our best to be fair on that. Now, there's this hiccup about how much property you own, and I don't know how to resolve that. I told Chad that. I don't know how to resolve that. It feels like we're at an impasse and somebody else is going to have to resolve that. I hope not, but possibly. As far as the safe walk route to school, I disagree. I can tell you right now, if I look at this list of properties, some of these are on the north side too, Chad. So either way, yeah, they are actually. Am I correct? Yeah. Yeah, there are. There are two properties on the north side of Harriman Highway that are in this process. So it's just simply not that, well, you just do the north side and not the south side. It's not even an option. Not to mention the fact that if we do that, the cost of this project will go up exponentially, because then we have to have a contractor redesign what he's doing, come back out later and try and do the other side. It's just not going to get done. And I would never feel good about having kids cross the road at 7300 West to the north. I watch people come up out of those bottoms right there very quickly. And in my mind, there's just not enough good sight distance to say, without a light there, yeah, let's just run the kids across the road here. It makes me feel like I'm not doing justice to the kids who have to walk there. We've worked with the school district there. This year they've been busing, but we worked with them, and our commitment to them was to get this project done before school starts so that the kids can walk to school and have it safe for them to walk to school. So that's part of the reason it is important to get this done. And I hope that we can continue to negotiate. That was another, in my opinion, a misunderstanding, is that we are going to continue to negotiate as long as you all will negotiate with us. I don't know, I would encourage you to give us a counter offer. It's my understanding we've not received a counter offer. So we've presented a counter offer on land. Give us back a formal counter offer that can be brought to council, and we can say, yeah, we approve, or no, we don't, and why we do or why we don't. We've not received that either. So I would encourage you to do that. Corridor preservation funds, it was mentioned that we're going to lose out on all those funds, and that is not correct. We will not. You cannot qualify for corridor preservation if you condemn the property, not the project. So any property owners that have negotiated with us and reached an agreement without a condemnation process, then we do qualify for corridor preservation. So that will help a different pocket, still out of the taxpayers' money, but it helps with a different pocket at a different level, at a county level, because quite frankly, the city funds are extremely limited. We had to make a lot of adjustments to this road to even, sorry, should I stop talking by now? Sorry, I'm well past my 5 minutes, and I'm sorry for that. But we had to make adjustments even to the design. We wanted the electrical to go underground, but we just can't cover the gap because we just simply don't have the money. And so then you have to go, well, is the safety of the students, and quite frankly, we just keep building a lot of houses out there. So we have to think about transportation. Is the safety? It's just like Doug talked about. I've been in the same situation trying to turn in, and people try to go around you the wrong way, and it's dangerous. And so the more and more traffic we continue to put on that road, the more and more risk that we create for our residents, and I just don't feel good about that. I can't feel good about that. So I believe that it has to get moving, it has to move forward, and I don't know if you all are aware about construction costs, but they haven't been going down. These projects increase exponentially year after year after year. And if we don't get this done, we probably won't be able to budget it for a while. I don't have no idea when we could even pay for it. So we got 3 bids in, 2 of them are way higher. And this one we could work with. It could meet our budget, and we could do this, and we could improve the roads for the residents. So those are some of the reasons why just some of my feedback on some of the comments made, and I'll let somebody else talk. Sorry.
Steve, any comments?
Yeah, so when I first came onto the council, one of the very first meetings I had before COVID shut the whole world down for a while was with the Ombudsman's office. They came in and they did a presentation to the whole council talking about the rights and responsibilities that are given to a city council. And he talked about constitutional issues, federal constitution, state constitution, and one of the things that he talked most about was essentially city council have responsibility for 2 things. It's the budget. We watch over the taxpayer funds and make sure that they're used appropriately. And the second thing is we make land use decisions. This falls under that category. In the responsibility to make those decisions, I want to make sure that I'm looking at all of the issues, that I'm understanding the details, understanding our legal processes, understanding, I'm looking right now at a county assessor's map that shows the portion that's in the roadway as not owned by anybody. It's public right-of-way. These kinds of issues lead me to believe that the city's position on this at this point, if not totally correct, is at least justified. And whether or not we're ultimately correct in our analysis of that property line, if we are incorrect, you got to receive full value for it. If we are correct, you won't receive the value for it. And that is, that's not our decision. We didn't claim that as a property. That's a county decision to name that as right of way and who pays taxes on it. Right now, nobody pays taxes on it. So that being said, I really wish that we could come to an agreement on where that property line is, but we can't. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to have disagreements. They exist. They happen frequently. We disagree with each other. We wouldn't expect you to be excited about not receiving what you were expecting in terms of your land value. However, as a city, we can't determine all of those things. We don't have the authority to determine if the county's tax records are lawful. We can't determine, we have a picture going back to 1943 showing this as a public road. We can't say when it was closed and not closed over all of those years. We don't have authority to say, here's the parcel lines. We don't have authority over those things. We can only say that we think the project, based on all the information that we have, should go forward, and that the actions that are being recommended to us through the staff are legal and lawful. If it's determined that, and I have to say I strongly doubt this, but if it was determined that there's been misrepresentations to the council by professional staff, it would support your legal case for your full value, and it would probably result in some professional censure for the people who made those decisions. I don't think that's going to happen. I have great confidence in the people who work here at the city. They are consummate professionals. I've seen them over and over again in countless situations act above and beyond for the best interest of the residents of the city. And I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of the work they do. But that doesn't mean that they're always right, and that doesn't mean that they don't have disagreements. So I guess I just want to say this. Whatever action this council determines tonight, it doesn't settle the other issues that remain to be settled. It doesn't solve the land lines. It doesn't solve the value issues. It doesn't solve this dispute. We make a decision about whether or not really the project can go forward at this point. I guess I would say I would encourage all of the landowners who still have concerns to engage with the Ombudsman's office. They're awesome. They are great. This is their job. This is what they're paid to do, is to resolve these issues. They will support your rights. They will support the city's rights. They will inform us if we've done wrong. They will inform you if your assumptions are incorrect as well. They're not the final say, but they're a great source for information. If you don't like what their answer is and you feel like they're incorrect or they don't have all the information, there is a legal process that you can go through. I regret that those issues exist, that there will be expense and trouble and inconvenience for all of that. But those are really the only avenues that exist to solve these issues. So as much as I have sympathy and understand the reasons for your disputes, we don't have the authority to resolve the dispute. We can't give you the satisfaction that you're looking for regarding these issues. All we can do is determine if we think the project should go forward. And at this point, because of the greater public interest, we have to vote for the project to go forward. That's what I'm going to recommend to the council. But regardless of that, you still need to be compensated appropriately, and we need other people to weigh in on what that appropriate number is. Whatever that is, you'll get full value. So I appreciate your patience, and I again, will encourage you to engage with those processes as are appropriate, because I think it's important that you get an opportunity to have all of your evidence reviewed by people in authority who can make those decisions for you. So I think I've said that a couple times now, but I'll go ahead and stop.
Jared, anything you'd like to add?
Just a couple things to summarize. I think everyone's comments are spot on. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. In this case, when we disagree, say the political or the representative body of the public disagree with the private landowner on a land use decision like this, that's what eminent domain process is for, is to help determine what a fair value is. There's no such thing as the government taking. That's what this process is for, is to enable the sale at what is a fair value. And that seems to be what the disagreement is about, is, as Steve pointed out, I think what it sounds like it comes down to is we have a property owner who thinks they own property that we don't think they do. And that's where the gap is. I think everything else is pretty easily overcome. But that's what this process is for. It's not a negative thing. It's not a negative process. It's not heavy-handed in any way. It's simply saying we've gone through all the steps. It's been exhausted over a few years' time. There's still a fundamental disagreement, and we're too far apart in coming to an agreement to purchase land. So we're left with this process. And it is still a somewhat lengthy process. And as Sherry mentioned, there's every chance along the way to come to an agreement, right? This isn't a once, as Steve put it, this isn't a final decision. This is just one step in that process, right? To further the process along, that's it. To me, this process, at least in my time, so this is my 8th year on the council. As far as I know, this is only the 2nd time during those years that we've gone to this step. In my opinion, the only reason that we ever reach this step is if there is that fundamental gap. And we have, generally, it's a property owner that's either uncooperative, they don't want to sell the land because they don't think that the road needs to go there, or whatever, the sewer line or whatever it is, they simply don't want to sell at all and contest whether it needs to go there. That's not the case here. I think the road is there. No one disputes where the road's going. To me, it's more that chasm of agreeing a price for the property. And in this case, it's more so who owns the property. right? And as Steve said, that's not for us to decide. If that's what's being disputed, then we have to go through this process for someone who has the authority to make that decision to do so. That's not up to us. But this process needs to continue for this project, to continue for all of the reasons mentioned above. If there's a reasonable compromise to be made, that can be made at any point. But for me, there's been no reasonable counter offer proposed. But we're willing to listen to that up until the final day that someone qualified does make that determination. So thank everybody for being involved in the process. It's not painless by any means, but it has been followed. We have accurate information to base our decisions on. This isn't a whim or something that we've been put under pressure to do in a short period of time. This has been an exhaustive process, and I think everyone's on our side. Everyone's done a very good job, and we're at the point we are where we just need to move forward and hopefully find a reasonable solution to the issue at hand.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make one more quick point.
You bet.
I really hate the public hearing process.
Me too.
It seems so unfair. My personal experience in appearing before the county council about the land use decisions regarding Olympia Hills. I went down to the county and they give you 3 minutes or something there, two or 3 minutes. You get to say your thing and then you feel ignored. You don't feel like your points are heard. You don't get to engage point and counterpoint. That dialogue and debate doesn't happen in these meetings, and it's frustrating. I think that we probably should put on an agenda item a discussion about this, what the legal lawful requirements are, and then where we might have some authority to allow some additional changes to our procedure. I don't know that would change a lot of the outcome tonight per se, just because even the evidence provided, I don't necessarily would give us the authority to make certain decisions on certain things. But going forth in the future, I want residents to feel like they have a voice here. We do listen to what you have to say. It does influence our decisions a great deal. We reach out frequently and ask for people to attend our meetings, to give us input, to show up at our budget hearings, to talk about our land use decisions. And this is probably the biggest audience we've had in a year. Unless there's a high school celebration going on, this is huge turnout. So for what it's worth, I do sympathize with the frustrations you have about the process and the concerns that are going on. And as a council, I think we should have a discussion about how we can do that better.
Ditto.
I don't want to belabor anything too much. I think everybody said where I'm at. I will just, to everybody either listening or in the room, I can't say that any of us up here wouldn't be in your doing the same thing you're doing today if we were in your shoes. I can't say that we wouldn't. I think we've all been on this side of it, and it's not easy to come over this side and make hard decisions. It's not. I wish it was all recognitions, and I wish that's what this was. And this is not easy. I mean, this has been a stressful decision. This is not one we're not looking at. I wish we never had to make a decision like this. So we truly empathize. I hope you know that. Again, I think we all feel comfortable moving forward because the process isn't over for you. You can still be rightfully compensated. It just takes a few more steps. So with that, I would look for a motion at this point then.
Mayor, I'm prepared to take a motion. Sorry, I put my paper away. Make a motion to approve resolution number R11-2023, authorizing eminent domain proceedings with respect to Harriman Main Street.
Motion by Teddy, second by Sherry. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries.
Mayor, I'm going to excuse myself. I'll be joining online, though. Jackie.
On your way to the, okay.
Yep.
I would just make one more comment in addition. Just, I would just, thank you for being here. I echo what Steve said. It's hard to be here, and it's nice to have people here. But I also would encourage all my contact is online. All my contact is in a lot of different apps that y'all might have access to, and I can only speak for myself, but I assume everyone's the same. I try hard to represent you and at least listen. And so if you have concerns about it, or if things are stalling at the city and you're like, oh, I can't get anything going there, that's what we're here for, is to see if we can mitigate that or help move conversations along. So we're here to represent you. So reach out and have those conversations.
Thank you. Before we move on to item 10, I just got one note. I'm getting a message. Item 11.3, I think you're okay? Okay. Okay, forget it. Okay, we'll move on to item 10, consent agenda. Look for a motion or any comments.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Motion by Sherry.
I hate to do this again, but I did have one question about item 10.5.
You want to pull it off?
Can I just make a comment real quick? I'll second the motion, but I have a comment.
Okay, then let's come back to it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll second the motion, but I have a comment about item 10.5.
Okay.
I'm really in support of this. The cost is minimal for participating in this. One of the things that I have concerns about these types of regional plannings for water, transportation, or whatever it is the visiting statements look great, and they come up with great suggestions, and they talk about what's going on, and then every city does what they want.
Never implemented.
They don't act in harmony with these regional plans. They don't act in accordance with these good principles and ideas that really would make things a lot better. And so although I'm supportive of us participating in this, I think that what we do with it afterwards is far more important. And I think that we need to be working better with not only the regional visioning people, the Wasatch Front Regional Council and the county and other parties, but we need to be working directly with our neighboring cities in forming agreements, maybe even resolution agreements, that we will support these kinds of things, that we will take actions that largely comply with these types of visions and not act in opposition to these things without pretty substantial justification. So just going forward, anything that we participate in regionally, we really need to be working for commitments from the other cities to support those things.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I had a motion by Sherry, second by Steve. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
No vote yes, that motion. Consent agenda is approved. Move on to item 11.1, consideration of a resolution approving the advance of funds for the purpose of purchasing 2 dump trucks and a hydro excavator truck and adopting official intent to reimburse said funds at a later date through financing. Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll keep this brief. So this is a procedure required by the Internal Revenue Service. Normally with a capital lease, we would execute the lease and then have the funds available to draw as we buy the vehicles. Due to the uncertainty with the supply chain, I've elected to delay executing the capital lease till we've received all the equipment so we know what the actual final cost is. The IRS, in order to do that, requires a resolution by you as a governing body allowing us to do that. That's simply what it is.
Perfect. Okay, questions, comments? Or I'll look for a motion.
I was confused until I read through the staff report, so
right.
Well written, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R13-2023, approving the advance of funds for the purpose of purchasing 2 dump trucks and a hydro excavator vector truck and adopting official intent to reimburse said funds at a later date through financing.
I'll second.
Motion by Sherry, second by Steve. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
No vote yes, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. 11.2, discussion and consideration to award the construction contract for Hamilton Farm storm drain improvements. Jonathan.
Good evening, everybody. So we're looking to approach the council here for decision on a construction contract for a project in Hamilton Farms. And it goes along, well, I can just jump to the next slide here, but it's in that area of the city. So it goes along McHouston Avenue and then up Aaron Loop. It's not labeled there, but that's the north-south road. And then along Gina Road. There's 4,000 feet of pipe that needs to get installed, and then 3,000 of that is undersized. So we're gonna follow and actually remove that storm drain line as we go along and install the new line. And these funds, this project is funded by the ARPA funds.
Are you gonna rip up that road? That new nice road, you're gonna rip it up?
What's that?
Are you gonna rip up that new nice road all along McQuiston?
So nope, so it starts just, so the portion that is completed is, but the stuff that we did recently is not gonna be touched. If that makes sense.
That'd be ironic.
New, it depends on what new you're talking about, Sherry. Okay. So we took this out to bid. J&B Excavating Inc. was the lowest responsible bidder for $1.4 million. The funds needed for the project, including all project costs and a 20% contingency, project contingency, brings the total budget needs to $1.8 million. The proposed budget for this project, it would be the one, essentially that value. And that, again, like I say, includes that contingency. Now, because these funds are in ARPA, there's also other projects within there that we would need to pull from, and that's approximately $113,000 more than what we'd anticipated taking for this particular project. So I just wanted to make sure that that was noted. So we did do a due diligence review, and our consultant helped us with that, and we received a letter of recommendation to award, which of course leaves us those two options: is do we proceed with awarding, or do we defer the project and reject all bids? So those are the options that we have before us today. Are there any questions that I can answer?
So this Rosecrest Sentinel Ridge Pond funding, there's still some information pending a resolution of that decision about whether that's going to be city property or we're going to return that property back to the HOA, the developer, for them to finish it up. If we don't give it back to them and we give this money away, I'm really concerned about our ability to complete that project. And that is, at least for the constituents of my district, a big deal. I'm not saying that I'm not supporting this. I'm just curious as to, are we just advancing from that pool and then we're going to reimburse that through the next budget? I mean, help me understand that.
And that's a good question that I think maybe we could pull some answers here from around here. But of course, we do not actually have a cost estimate for that particular project. And that came to just a little over $1.5 million.
Right.
And of course, there could be other projects that we could shift around. The easiest one to say to pull from would have been that Rosecrest Sentinel Ridge Pond, of course, because of our recent conversations. But I think the concern that you bring up is valid, that, we would be having to pull from what we originally anticipated on this particular project from another.
So basically, we're taking the 1.5 down to 1.3.
Correct.
9 or 3/8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got to get a better deal on stuff for that.
It just drives me nuts. The other thing I wanted to make a comment on is I've noticed in a lot of our budgets we have pretty healthy contingencies. Used to be 8 or 10%, now then 15, now 20% contingencies. My question in those 20% contingencies from a budget standpoint is, how oftentimes are we running over the proposed budget and how much of that contingency is getting used up on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to your point as to the reason for the 20% contingency is traditionally we would have a 10% contingency in the project budget, and we have seen that go away pretty quickly. So that's the reason for the 20% contingency, of course, with the construction climate the way that it is. That's just additional buffer to kind of keep us in line. Now, of course, those costs are tempering, but so there is, I guess to your point, there's a possibility we don't scratch at the 20% beyond, say, 10 or 15, but we just don't know.
Yeah, my concern is that if we have a 20% contingency, J&B gets the award because of their low bid. But if they go 20% over, they're not the low bid anymore. If Newman bids it and they're higher, but they can do it at that price and not go over and get into the 20%, they're the better bid. And so that's the problem I have is this contingency is just.
So the contingency is not theirs. That's ours to control.
I understand.
And so typically with an underground project, you're going to want a little bit higher because you just don't know what you don't know until you start digging.
Approximate and stuff, yeah.
But every time they put in an RFI wanting a change order to increase, that goes through a whole process with engineers or consultants to see, is this a reasonable piece? Is this a reasonable increase? Is it something they should have foreseen, they didn't, or were our specs? There's a whole process. I've rarely seen projects other than when you're trying to do an underground at 10% where you're starting to bump up against that, just simply because the process to go through it. You might use some contingency. Sometimes we direct to do other things. Sometimes it's their request. We shouldn't be viewing that from the staff side as money just to be spent on this project. That's for emergencies. And so you're not going to normally see JB do that. There are contractors, I don't think any of this on this list, who are RFI hounds, and they will as soon as when you hire them, they are going to start hammering you with paper saying, hey, we didn't know about this wasn't clear, we want increases. So can it happen? Yes. I'd say it generally doesn't. I'm not aware of any of our projects where we've gone over the contingency in the last little while since I've been here.
Just my concern is, the reason I ask about this is I don't recall us ever having budget adjustments or budget amendments to return the contingency back into the capital projects fund. I don't recall that happening in the past, where you say, hey, this project came in $126,000 under what we had budgeted for. Now this 126 that we budgeted here for, we need a budget amendment to move that back towards another project, right? I mean, we can't just arbitrarily move that money around.
If it's not spent, it's going to be available to go to another project.
I understand, but doesn't that require a new budget or a budget amendment?
Let me speak to that a little bit. First thing, granted, I've only been here less than a year. What I've noticed with the last budget cycles, we had a number of capital projects go over. So that's one reason why I didn't come back to you and say you have X amount of money to reallocate.
They went over.
Not all of them, but I noticed a good number of them, and now I didn't delve in to see if there was not a contingency or if there was some other extenuating circumstances or the proper budget amendment process didn't get followed. I will say one thing we did with the first budget amendment is I had a horrible, nasty spreadsheet with a lot of columns. One of those columns, as I take every project from the prior year and I show, okay, we need to allocate more money to finish it, or this project's done and there's an amount to release. So it's not necessarily very apparent from the fact I didn't stand up here and say these projects came in under budget, this is going back into the fund. It is on that spreadsheet. But you are correct. If a project needs additional funding, normally I would come back to you through a budget amendment process and say this needs additional money. I even bring back, if it's just between projects within the same fund, I still bring that back to you because I want you to be aware.
And I appreciate, Kyle, I think you've done a great job. The amount of transparency and information you provided us about this is great. And I do appreciate you saying that on some of these in the past, you don't feel like the proper budget amendment process was followed. That actually it's not great news, but it makes me feel better that I wasn't imagining that there's a gap in the proper action here. So I have faith that you'll keep on top of that and let us know in the future. So thank you.
And I just will say I've never seen a capital project without some sort of change order that comes in. Now, what the contingency level, that's up for discussion, but I will just say I haven't ever seen one without a change order.
Sure.
And I just want to say, Nathan, thank you for that point. I did want to add, so if in typical cases like Nathan was saying, if there is a project addition, in a lot of cases that could be on the city's intent to move forward. Now Newman would have to go through that same process, and they would have to, so and sometimes there are an error and omissions, then Newman would have to then go through that same process to go through a change order. And so they would add to their price as well. And of course that 20% is not theirs. Couple of things just to clarify, and Justin would just want to make sure that we understood this, is that the 1.8 in that budget includes that 20% contingency. And then of course,
understand that, right.
we traditionally use a 10%, and if we did the 10% contingency, which we can fight to stay down to, we would not be pulling from that additional amount, if that would make sense.
So if you keep it under 1.7, Steve still has his 100,000 for his pond.
Got it.
Hey, it's a big. If you knew how much battle I had to do.
I know.
I mean, it started before I was elected. That is a big issue for the residents over there, and something that I've promised them that I would continue to advocate for. So
yeah, we did recognize that it's a little bit of an understanding that there some conversations ideally would be nice to have prior to others, but of course we're hoping to
and it
move
might be
forward
moved, but it's not resolved yet, so I need to speak to it. So
correct.
Thank you.
You got it. Any other questions?
Any other questions, or I'll look for a motion?
Sorry, guys. Motion to award the construction contract for the Hamilton Farm storm drain improvements to J&B Excavating.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Sherry. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Thank you, Jonathan.
Sorry, guys. I did not mean to drag that out.
You're fine. 11.3, discussion and consideration of an amendment to the Olympia Master Development Agreement. Blake?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Save the best for last, right? No. This one's, we're going to go through it pretty quickly, I think, because we had some new information today that changes some of this stuff, and we've given this presentation a few times. But we do have a new map, so this will show you where Olympia's at, in case anyone was wondering.
You had your head in a rock for a long time. You don't know where it's at.
And Olympia was brought in as a large master plan community, and as such, it was required to do a master development agreement. So that agreement was executed on November 16th, 2021, encompassed 933 acres, 6,333 dwelling units, which is 6.78 units per acre. Some of the benefits that the city received out of it was some guarantee for open space, regional parks, and as we'll hear in a second, some guaranteed commercial property that will come in as part of the development. The amendment, or the agreement was amended on September 1st, 2022 administratively to formalize stormwater discharge rates that were negotiated with Salt Lake County. There's 4 parts to this proposed amendment, and as you see the text come up, the red text signifies new text that's being proposed, and crossed out text is text that's being removed. So this would be a whole new section in the agreement that would release the requirement for the special owner to execute an amendment that didn't affect their property. Special owner is Jordan School District. So that's the first of 4 proposed changes to the agreement. Second one is the commercial property, as I discussed. This changes from requiring half of the intersection to be located within the project to just 1/4. And instead of a line, they say located. And that number would be if at least 1/4 is in the project, located within the project of the intersection, that there will be 300,000 square feet of gross leasable commercial area constructed as part of the project. The third item is regarding the public infrastructure districts. There was language that spoke about a contract fee, and that was the assurance that the developer was using for the PID. They've requested that there be an opportunity in the agreement that they could come and amend the governing document to allow other options instead of just a contract fee. Of course, as we learned in the work meeting tonight, this will require amendment to the Public Infrastructure District policy. And so we're waiting for that, or we're going to be putting some more information together and bringing that back to the council for a deep dive discussion on PIDs and other infrastructure funding options. And the last one, item 4, is a discussion that we're still collecting information on with our water department and engineering department regarding secondary water. And this request was to remove the section in its entirety that they'd be required to install secondary water within the development. And there will be more discussion on that from the staff at another meeting too. So are there any questions? I believe the recommendation for this one in the staff report was to approve, but with the newer information and some delay on info, recommend continue this item.
I guess my only question is, I'm comfortable continuing the 2 items, especially the secondary water, without the details we asked about. Going back to item 3 about the PIDs, if we were to approve this language, would that be at odds with our policy? Is that what you're saying? And so until we amend our policy, we can't do this?
Yes, the
Okay,
policy says that they can only allow a contract fee.
Understood.
Okay.
And so I think the recommendation to approve 1 and 2 and continue 3 and 4.
Can we do that?
I don't think the applicant would like to have it all in one package.
Okay.
So.
I have a question too. You mentioned, and I'm really sorry, my head is pounding. You mentioned some legislation that you thought anytime we reopen these MDAs, we should insert. Does this apply?
Yeah, I think we should do that.
The landscaping.
So you'd like to add a section to require bonding for landscaping inside, for private landscaping inside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not complete.
You thank the legislature for that one.
No, so I just would like.
Hold on.
To discuss that a little bit, to make sure that we make sure we take advantage of that opportunity, so it doesn't come back and bite us and have a bunch of people move in without front yards.
Yeah. Do that.
And if, obviously, I can see that there's a want for discussion on that part, which I totally respect, but I would like that to be part of the discussion.
Add it to the rest of the discussion, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Just because we just discussed it in the other room, that every time one of these gets open, we should add it.
So I would make a motion that we continue resolution number R14-2023 to an undetermined future date.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Sherry. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
Well done with our work we have.
Thank you, everybody. Future meetings, next Planning Commission meeting, April 5th, 2023. Next City Council meeting, April 12th. So we get a 3-week break, 2023. Events, April 1st, the Harriman City Basket Dash at 10 o'clock here at Crane Park. April 3rd, Hungry Harriman starts out here as well at Crane Park. At this point, we will look for a motion to go to closed. We do have a closed item tonight.
Yeah, this is your shine.
Motion to temporarily recess the city council meeting to convene in closed session for the purpose to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation in the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property as provided by Utah Code annotated section 52-4-205.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Sherry. Jared? Teddy?
Yes.
Okay, Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries. We'll move into closed.
And Mayor, just real quick, can you just state the room that it's going to be located in?
Oh, we'll be moving closed into the council chambers.